Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. We're here to talk about, well, basically new to accounting today. So basically, if you're new to Church Windows accounting, you need some clarification or a little bit of guidance on how some kind of basic accounting basics here today are going on. We're going to try to talk about those here. Before we get started on our topic, if you have a single monitor, just click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel. That allows you to minimize the webinar control panel, get it out of the way, or drag it off to your second desktop if you've got a dual monitor setup. Again, get the full visual effect of the presentation. We are recording today's webinar event, so it will be out on our Support Center page here sometime in the next day or so for you to review this if you wish. There is no handout for today's event. There's no paperwork or anything, no document, albeit that may be something we're going to work on here and get out on our website at some point in future too. If you have questions for me, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those and try to answer them during the event if I can, but if not, I'll certainly be happy to stick around afterwards and answer those for you at the very end. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about, some kind of accounting basics here if possible. I may have to put some questions off to a support call. Just maybe some specific things that are unique to your particular data, that it's not because I don't want to answer it. There just is more information that's needed in order to provide an answer for you, not because I don't want to answer it for you. The event today is scheduled for 30 minutes, not our standard 20 minutes. If you have seen what you came to see at any particular point, of course, you may leave the webinar. We certainly appreciate you attending today's and joining us for today's event. Okay, so let's jump into Church Windows accounting here. So kind of as I was trying to develop kind of how to approach this, first of all, one, we're limited to 30 minutes. There's no way I can cover absolutely everything in Church Windows accounting in a 30-minute time window, now 22 or 23 minutes on this. So I had to kind of pick and choose some things that I felt that were important, that I kind of work with, having done this as long as I have, that I felt were important to folks who might be coming in, kind of being thrown into Church Windows accounting, and what you might address or what you might face when dealing with that, okay? So if I don't hit on something right away, either try to shoot it into a question to me or, again, call us on support. We're happy to talk with you about anything as it pertains to Church Windows and accounting specifically. So the first thing that came to mind was that I was saying, okay, well, in virtually every case here, you're going to get into a Church Windows accounting and you're going to have a pre-constructed chart of accounts. Somebody else initially has set up the Church Windows and the chart of accounts in accounting. You have no idea what that looks like or what that's being dealt with or what's being dealt with in terms of that, okay? So what I've done is I've gone ahead and opened our Church Windows chart of accounts, but basically you're taking it from a standpoint where a chart of accounts is already pre-existing. We have no way of knowing how integral that is, how valid it is, how well it's working, or what have you. But there are some certain things that I can say about Church Windows and the accounting software that may help and guide you in terms of what you would want to look for initially. So the first thing that's important to understand is that Church Windows accounting is a fund accounting system, okay? Our software bases it on fund accounting, and as we see here in our chart of accounts, if I collapse all, we see down the left side here assets, accounts the church owns, liabilities, monies or accounts where the church owes money, fund balance or equity accounts, and this is what makes Church Windows unique, are these fund balances. And then, of course, our standard additional traditional income and expense accounts, okay? So what I want to do is assets, of course, being the accounts that the church owns, checking accounts, savings, investments, money markets, CDs, fixed assets, anything that the church owns, we're going to be classified as assets. Those are typically pretty clear, okay? Where things get to be a little bit tricky for folks in their understanding are these accounts called fund balance accounts, okay? When we go in here, unlike a regular standard for-profit balance sheet where we might see one equity account called owner's equity where all of our income and expenses go in and out of, church windows, you might see, like in our example here, we might have 6 or 8 or 10 or 30, 40, 50. I've seen charts of accounts where there's enormous amounts of fund balances, okay? But these each have their own separate income and expenses, and they are their own reporting separate entity. That is really what defines a fund separately from other accounts, is the actual definition of a fund and what it does. So when we click our plus sign next to our ledger here for Memorial, we see even more additional funds here with our sub-funds under here with our separate Memorial funds. But this doesn't really kind of paint the full picture of a fund, okay? When I click on a fund like my general operating fund and I go to the right-hand side here to this tab called Tree View, right here, Tree View on the right, that's going to show the actual wonderful relationship or the relational view of each one of our income and expenses to their respective fund. So when I click on the Tree View and I begin to click the plus sign next to these funds, notice we begin to see income accounts and expense accounts. So this is directly from the chart of accounts, shows us exactly which income and expenses are linked to each fund. There's other reports that will allow us to see this relational view as well. But this, from our simple standard chart of accounts window, is a really wonderful way to see exactly what income and expenses are affecting or linking into or out of a specific fund. Okay? So like in the case of our building fund, we see a couple of income accounts and a handful of expenses. So a pretty basic or simple fund. But typically for a fund to function properly, it has to have at least one income, a way of bringing in new income into the fund, and one expense to expense or spend money out of that fund. A more complex example of that would be something like our general operating fund, where we might see a dozen income accounts, as we're seeing here, different income sources, and when we collapse that down, maybe lots and lots of expense accounts where we're spending, our money that's managing the day-to-day operations of the church is being spent from, okay? But it's important to understand that Church Windows is a fund accounting system, okay? You might have one fund called undesignated fund and another fund called designated fund. It could be that simple. But every one of your chart of accounts are going to be different, and it might warrant that you have to pick up the phone and give us a call if you have specific questions about your setup that aren't answered by this event today, okay? Second, Church Windows accounting is a double entry balanced debit and credit accounting system. So what I mean by that is for every transaction, there's going to be a debit account and amount and a credit amount and an account. That's simple, okay? So you won't be able to, I'm sorry, folks, I'm having some connection issues here. Bear with me here. Hopefully it'll unlock here momentarily. But in any case, for every transaction, there's a balanced debit and a credit. So, and we're going to see a little more of that here in a minute, as soon as I can get my machine to unlock here. So while we're waiting for that, I want to just see if there's something. Okay, so in addition to that, assuming my audio is still coming through loud and clear, we're going to see Church Windows accounting is a payable accounting system. So what I mean is there's not a cash system. There's going to be two transactions involved with paying virtually every single bill that we have in the software. There's going to be a bill transaction and a payment transaction. Okay, so folks are telling me that they can hear me. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Bear with me, so folks, sorry. It's me connecting in with my home machine that I seem to be having issues. Okay, so it seems like we're back. Okay, excellent. Double entry accounting system. So what I mean by that is when we go into transactions and browse and we look at our browse transactions, every single one of our transactions here has both a debit side and a credit side. There's two lines to every transaction. I'm so sorry, folks. This just happens to be happening today for me now. It happens to be during the webinar event. I'm connecting into my work machine from my home, and I apparently seem to be having some internet problems. I'm so sorry. Okay, so it's back now. Weird. Okay. We're so reliant on technology these days. All right, so when we go into browse, hopefully it should load all my transactions. Here we go. So right here on the left, I see my first bill, transaction number 61. It's got 61 twice. Once is the debit amount and one's the credit account, as we can clearly see here in the middle. Okay, right here. Debit amount, credit amount. Okay. Every single entry requires that they be balanced and that that there's always at least two accounts involved in every transaction. All right. So again, that should assist you with understanding that it's a balanced debit and credit accounting system. All right. Can't post a one-sided unbalanced entry. Simply can't happen. Okay. So again, as I was stating before, we are a payable system. So no single transaction that debits the expense and credits cash, posting to a vendor payee. Virtually 9 times out of 10, 95 times out of 100, your process is going to start with entering bills to post the bill transaction, and then step 2 will be transaction number 2, which is then going to post your payment, debiting your vendor and crediting cash. Okay, we're not going to spend a whole lot of detail on that today, or not spend much more time on that. Why? Because that's going to bring up the next topic that I want to talk about, which is where you can find more information on this. So first, per what we had mentioned about fund accounting, I want to talk about here. If I go into my support center, churchwindows.com/support, I click here under the keyword theory, and I click search. You're going to find a nice, wonderful document that we've had out here for many, many years that talks about fund theory. I strongly recommend that you take a peek at this document and read this, okay? It will help you understand how fund accounting works similarly or differently from standard traditional for-profit accounting, okay? Number 1. Number 2, again, because we don't need to go into enter bills and pay bills. Why? Because, again, I've got a lot of documents and videos out here on the Support Center page that will help you and assist with you with your enter bills and pay bills process. So we notice right here, enter bills, pay bills, a video and a document. I believe there's a video and a document. Yep, video and document on the enter bills, pay bills process, about 20 minutes long. Or we've even got one down here where we've got enter bills in one video and a document, and pay bills in another video and document. So if you need a little more clarity on both of those, you might want to take a peek at those. Finally, before moving on to something different, I'm going to minimize my browser page here. When I go into enter bills, this didn't work for me on Tuesday on my last webinar, but I believe I've got it fixed today. If you're on the current version of the Church Windows, please learn to hit F1 on your keyboard on any screen in the software to access the help file. So right here, it's opening it up. I'm going to click Allow Blocked Content. Boom, I'm on my Enter Bills window screen. I hit Allow Blocked Content. It opens up the help page on Enter Bills. So you've got lots of available help at your fingertips, even just by hitting F1 on any screen in the program. Again, let me show how that works. Let's go back to Pay Bills just to make sure that I'm not making this up. Here I am at Pay Bills. I hit F1. It opens up. I allow blocked content. It opens up the HTML file, a help page on Pay Bills. Okay? All kinds of information available to you, whether through our support center or the F1 key in your help page, help topic, all kinds of information. Then, of course, we are simply a phone call away if you have more help or need more help with that. Okay? So just be aware. There's lots of information available. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to pick up the phone. Okay? Or send us an email. So let's go through a quick bill entry and payment process super fast. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I want to go and pay a bill today. I enter a date on my bill. I choose the vendor that I'm wanting to pay. So we're going to choose my electric bill. We're going to choose American Electric Power. I can type in some comments if I wish. Bill. Then I come down here. I tab down. I can choose my expense account. I'm going to type in electric. I'm going to choose my electric. I'm going to type in my amount of my bill that I'm paying. I'm going to enter a split bill here. So I'm going to do my electric bill for the church, and then I'm going to do my rental electric, and I'm going to enter the bill for that one as well. splitting it across two different expense accounts. Click Done, Add to Batch. I can go back up and enter a new vendor and add a new bill to a different payee to the same batch, or I can go ahead and post and pay this one, okay? So let's say we're ready. I'm ready to post this payment. I go click down here and I can do either post or post and pay these bills. This is as close to a cash method of paying bills, folks, as we can get. So we're going to do post and pay these bills. I definitely want to pay it now. I'm not waiting. It asks me, do I want to print a report of my bill transactions? For the purpose of expediency, we're going to click no. It now opens up my pay bills window with this bill for American Electric Power pre-selected. My bill's already marked as paid. I check my date, check my asset. My amount to pay is correct. Computer check. Don't enter my check number here. I can certainly enter comments. If I use my INS, I can go, okay, I'm going to append a payment. Click OK. It now puts those comments into the transaction comments. I'm ready to now post and print my checks. Again, it's going to ask me, I'm going to say no to printing my payment transaction. It now opens up my print checks window ready for me to print to my computer prepared check. Put in my starting check number or get check next check number if I want. Click print. Opens up my check print preview. I need to put, computer check or check stock in my printer. Click the print icon in the upper left corner. And then I would print that. And then when I close out, it should, it would ask me if the check printed correctly. And then I would say yes. And if assuming I would wait until it printed, grabbed it off the printer to make sure it printed correctly. Okay. Before responding to that question. But a quick one bill payment process and print check screen there for folks. Okay. Oh, one of the questions I'm seeing here now is, can you handwrite checks? Yes, of course. William, in that case, when you go to pay bills, you would still enter and pay it like normally. You'll just choose the payment method of manual check and plug in your check. Great question. Okay. So our topic here, folks, there are a few other things I want to cover here, and I'll try to get your questions answered here. Some of them seem to be a little more detailed than others. In addition to entering and paying your bills, if the church owns both church windows, either donations and or payroll, the process of posting and transferring donations into accounting is seamless. We go into donations, we can do that, or we can go back into accounting and we can do that from the accounting software as well. So when I'm in accounting, assuming I'm responsible for that, I can go right up here to transfer donations. I've got some batches here entered from one of those batches. Click the post button to the right. It confirms which accounts it's going to affect. I can enter comments. I can click post. It's now going to create that accounting transaction for February 28th. I would simply do the same thing with others as well. Okay? Same thing with church windows payroll. If I have payroll pending to transfer, I would simply, post my payroll, print my checks. It transfers seamlessly into accounting with one check, with one mouse click. Okay? So again, these should already be pre-set up for you. The software is designed to support all of these processes. So if you have accounting or payroll or donations, they should be transferring the payroll and the donations seamlessly into accounting, just like I've shown there for, like in this case, for donations, okay? It's what it's designed to do. If it's not transferring donations into accounting or payroll into accounting and you have questions about it and you're unclear, please pick up the phone and call us, okay? Folks, we have other options available as well. We have live web training, paid method of getting some more personal attention or attention for our users and customers. If you have it in your budget and you want to have a trainer such as myself, remote in and help you with an hour or two of training for you, it's very affordable and very inexpensive. It would be on our support. I'll try to get to the page here and show you where you can register or see more information on that. I believe we're also going to have a workbook sale coming up here at some point. I don't know when exactly, but you may want to keep an eye out for that as well. Okay, so I do want to spend, with a few more minutes left here, I want to spend a little bit of time on reporting, okay? So all of this stuff, again, with much of this stuff probably already pre-set up for you, and one of the things I encourage you to do is learn how to use the software for yourself, okay? Meaning, because some other user said, well, this is how I did it, doesn't mean that's one, either correct, or it's not necessarily the only way that maybe something would be done. There might be some other options for you. So I encourage you to learn everything you can about the software, because somebody else might be instructing you incorrectly about how something would be done. So if you're unclear, call us, send us a support email, ask for help, ask for assistance. It's what we're here to do. So with a few minutes left, let's talk about some reporting. So, transferring donations, transferring payroll, posting bills and payments, what have you. There's income transactions, journal entries. There's lots of options here. This is a full-fledged accounting system. Okay, it should be able to track all of the monies and the workbook activity that the church has or requires. But in addition to getting those transactions entered into the software, we've then now got to be able to get the output out in the form of reports. Okay, so when we go up to reports here and we go to the upper left corner, we see here balance sheet, fund activity report, treasurer's report. Treasurer's report, we're going to talk about here for a couple minutes. It's the income expense statement, profit and loss, treasurer's report, whatever you call it in your whatever other system you're working with. This is that report. It reports on your income and expense accounts and how that income and expense activity compares to your budget. So here in this case, we choose a month or a quarter. Okay, I can choose a specific fund if I want. So let's say all of my budgeted accounts were linked to my general operating fund. I might choose that. Okay, so then we'll choose month March 2021. I would then want to visit my columns tab. And here, folks, is where you've got enormous power. You can decide what information columns you want to see on the report and in what order those columns appear. So let's say I don't care about my previous year at this point. I'm going to double-click on that to take that off. I'm going to leave everything here, period activity, monthly budget, perfect. Those relate. Everything's good. I now click print. Opens up a preview of my treasurer's report, shows everything as I've asked. I go, yep, I like this report. I can either now send it to my printer or I can export it and I can, attach it as an email and send it to folks. I can now do whatever I want with it, okay? Play with these reports. It warrants that you get familiar with how they can be changed and manipulated at will. It will remember your settings based on your logon into church windows, okay? Period activity, so in this case, month March, I've got nothing. Then I've got monthly budget, year-to-date, budget year-to-date, and annual budget. Again, a pretty standard profit and loss, treasurer's report, income expense statement, what have you, okay? In addition to the treasurer's report, we've got our balance sheet. Again, statement of financial position. So I can, again, choose my period, in this case March, or we're going to change that back to February. I might have some activity in there. Got some columns. Again, I visit my columns. I can choose to include it, but really my account number, account name, and year-to-date balance are what I'm most concerned with. I click print. It shows exactly where I stand in the year regarding my cash accounts, my liabilities, and my fund balance accounts. Okay? Again, a pretty standard report, except you've got multiple funds instead of just one. Okay? One of the reports that makes Church Windows accounting really unique, and I want to spend a couple minutes talking about this one, is called the Fund Activity Report. As a fund accounting system, it's important to know exactly what happens, the activity as it occurs in each fund. So when we choose the Fund Activity Report, we see 3 different report options down the left-hand side here. Under the format, we've got the detailed, the 2 consolidated formats, month or year-to-date. We're going to take a quick peek at both of them, or all of them here, well, a couple of them at least. So the detailed If I omit accounts with zero balance or activity, well, I probably might want to include those, sorry. So notice here it's zeroing in the very first fund as our general operating fund. So in this case, it shows general operating fund, year activity, current activity. So in this case, March. Year-to-date activity, so starting at January. So beginning balance of March was $88,249. Beginning of the year was $95,000. Shows any of my income activity, my expense activity, then shows me any direct debit or journal entry transfers in or out of the general fund, and then it shows its current or ending balance. Okay? Then it goes into my next fund and does the same thing. Remember my building fund where I had a couple of income accounts and a couple of expenses? So this report tells me exactly what happened in the fund for the year or the period in question. Okay? Doesn't matter about my cash balances in this case. Yes, those are important, of course. That's what I've got my bank reconciliation for. But this report exclusively tells me in a snapshot what happened in each fund. As promised, I want to run this for one of the consolidated. One of my favorite reports in Church Windows Accounting are the consolidated fund activity reports. So if I choose selected year to date, it tells me exactly here in one line what happened in each one of these funds. So right here, whoops, I meant to zoom out on that, folks. Sorry, just to give you a little bigger picture. So it shows beginning balance for the year, receipts or income, disbursements or expenses, debit or credit, journal entry or transfers to the fund, and our current or ending balance. I love this report. For me, simple, tells me what activity and what actions occurred in the fund without overcomplicating it, okay? Use these reports. There are a series of other reports as well that we do not have time to cover today. But under transactions, we've got, check register, general ledger, transaction journal, any accounts receivable invoice or statements. Under worksheets, we've got, accounts payable reports, list chart of accounts, summary of cash activity, trial balance, and our accounts receivable reports. As well as, budget report, printing checks, 1099, when you're wanting to print 1099s for your contractors, and then if you're wanting to export the data. Okay? All right. So that's where I'm going to leave this today, folks. Okay? So we're going to end our topic on the webinar there for today. All right. So as I said, I promised I would answer questions or see what we've got here. So let me go back to the top here on the edge and